Okay, now I'm going to get into the Dead Sea Scrolls, because I've been hearing a lot of things saying, "Oh yeah, the Dead Sea's about to be transformed. It's about to change. It's about to be transformed." So actually, I'm going to get into the Aquarian Gospel again. So, um, I seen something on Bob Lazar talking about Project Aquarius. Project Aquarius. We are now in the age of Aquarius. Actually, this is a book from the Akashic Records. Um, so we're going to get into this, and hopefully this will reach the ears of somebody, and it will get out, and I could eat these words up and then be able to deliver them to somebody else. So this is what I like to do. I like to retain knowledge in order to give it back out. Okay? So we were stopping, okay? So we stop whenever, so Jesus is getting tested here. He's being put through the test, okay? Now, is this the White Brotherhood? Is this a secret brotherhood? Yes. So we'll pick up here in 82 of the Aquarian Gospel. 826, okay. 82. So this is what Jesus says here. Okay. For 40 days the higher wrestled with the lower self, and then the fight was won. Now remember, Jacob wrestled with the angel at Peniel. Okay? So when you go into the old, when you're in the old land or the old man or whatever you want to say, okay? So you wrestle, is the name Israel means to wrestle with God, okay? To wrestle with God. So Jacob said, I will not stop fighting you until you bless me. Okay? Now I fought with God, I fight with God, I battle with God every single day. Remember, iron sharpens iron, just as steel sharpens steel. So as many as God loves, he chastens. As many as he loves, you get put through the fire, okay? You get put through the fire. So thus, okay, the conflict was a bitter one. For King Ambition is sturdy foe to fight. For 40 days the higher self wrestled with the lower self, and the fight was won. Faith arose triumphant. Unbelief was not. Ambition covered up his face and fled away. And Jesus said, the wealth, the honor, and the fame of the earth are but the bubbles of an hour. See that? They fade. They fade. You see, David talks about in Psalms how these men think that they're going to build these, like Jesus said, a man went out and he gathered all his goods, and he kept gathering goods, and he kept storing up goods. And he said, I will be rich and I will have this property, and, I will be okay. This property is mine. Meanwhile, okay, it means nothing. God takes it away, and it passes like the wind passes away. Like a flower fades away, okay? Like a leaf withers. Okay? Now it's interesting, he said bursting bubbles. Bursting bubbles will be buried with his bones. When this short span of earthly life has all been measured out, man's bursting bubbles will be buried with his bones. Yet what a man does for his selfish self will make no markings on the credit side of life. The good that men do for other men shall be a ladder strong on which the soul may climb to wealth. Now you notice the board changes, okay? The board changes constantly. Always look for the ladder. The ladder will be there. Okay? When I say look for the ladder, I mean literally look for the ladder. When you see a ladder, okay? That represents, Jacob's ladder. It's really a symbol for DNA, but also it is also a symbol for your higher self and how the traverse of your soul and the higher self. Okay? So Jesus said, the good that men do for other men shall do becomes a ladder strong on which the soul may climb to wealth, power, and fame of God's own kind that cannot pass away. Give me the poverty of men, the consciousness of a duty done in love, and the approbation of my God, and I will be content. Then he lifted up his eyes to heaven and said, my Father God, I thank thee for this hour. I ask not for the glory of thyself. See, everybody wants to rule the world. Everybody wants glory. Okay? Now, how great is it of a man that came into his own and his own received him not? And even after that, still did not seek his own glory. I fain would be a keeper of the temple gates and serve my brother man. See, that's a humble servant. That's a suffering servant. Read Isaiah 53. Okay? Jesus was called to stand before the Hierophant, and again no word was said, but in his hands the master placed a scroll which was written, faith. Jesus bowed his head in humility and thanked and went his way. Jesus passes the fourth brotherhood, chapter 51. Isn't this interesting? So it receives the fourth degree, philanthropy. Okay. So when other certain days had passed, the guide led Jesus to the hall of where? Mirth. Okay. Now, do you know about the myrtle tree? See, the word Esther is really a derivative meaning the myrtle tree. Okay. The essence. Okay. So a hall most richly furnished and replete with everything a carnal heart could wish. Okay. So Jesus is going to be tempted here with all the carnal desires that he could possibly imagine. So the choicest vines and the most delicious wines were on the boards, and maids in gay attire served with all grace and cheerfulness. And men and women richly clad were there, and they were wild with joy. They sipped from every cup of mirth. And Jesus watched the happy throng in silence for a time. Then a man in garb, a sage, came up and said, most happy is the man who, like the bee, can gather sweets from every flower. Now check that out. You see all those signs with Oliver the bee, okay? Be me, be happy, be lucky, be this, be that. Be all this, Huckabee, the bees and the honeys, okay? So, the wise man is the one who seeks for pleasure and can find it everywhere. And the best man's span of life on earth is short. He dies and goes, and he knows not where. Let us eat and drink and dance and sing and get the joys of life. For death comes on apace. It is but foolishness to spend a life for other men. Behold, all die and lie together in the grave where none can know and none can show forth gratitude. But Jesus answered not upon the tinselled guests. In all their rounds of mirth, he gazed in a silent thought. Then among the guests, now notice, he's here at a hall, okay, visiting this place. So he saw a man whose clothes were coarse. He showed his face and the hands and lines of toil and want. And the giddy throng found pleasure in abusing him. They jostled him against the wall and laughed at his discomfiture. And then a poor, frail woman came who carried in her face and the marks of sin and shame. Without mercy, she spit upon and jeered and driven from the hall. And a little child with timid ways and a hungry man came in and asked for a just morsel of their food, but he was driven out, uncared for, unloved, and still the merry dance went on, and the pleasure seekers urged that Jesus join them in their mirth. He said, how could I seek for pleasure for myself while others are in want? How can you think that while the children cry for bread, while those in haunts of sin call out for sympathy and love, that I could fill myself full with good things of life? I tell you, no. We are all family, each one a part of the great human heart. I cannot see myself apart from that poor man that you scorned and crowded to the wall, nor from the one in female garb who came up from the haunts of vice to ask for sympathy and love, who was by you so ruthlessly pushed back into her den of sin, nor from the little child that you drove from your midst, that you suffer in the cold, bleak winds of night. I tell you, men, what you have done to these, my kindred, you have done to me. Matthew 25. You have insulted me in your own home. I cannot stay. I will go forth and find that child and that woman and that man and give them help until my life's blood has all ebbed away. I call it pleasure when I help the helpless, feed the hungry, clothe the naked, heal the sick, speak good words of cheer to those unloved, discouraged, depressed. And this that you call mirth is but a phantom of the night. See? It's like a flower that fades. It's a flash of the fire of passion, painting pictures on the walls of time. While the Logos spoke, the white-robed priest came in and said to him, the council waits for you. Then Jesus stood again before the bar, and again no word was said. The Hierophant placed in his hands a scroll which was written philanthropy, and Jesus was a victor over selfish self. Now here we go. We're going to talk about heroism. Okay, see, the mind of a hero. Okay, the mind of a hero puts everything, dedicates everything for the betterment of good. So the sacred temple, okay, this is the 5th degree. The sacred temple groves were rich in statues, monuments, and shrines. Jesus loved to walk and meditate, and after he had conquered himself, he talked with the nature in these groves for 40 days, and then the god took chains, bound him in hand and foot, and cast him into a den of hungry beasts, unclean birds, creeping things. The den was dark at night. The wild beasts howled, the birds in fury screamed, the reptiles hissed, and Jesus said, who was it that did bind me this? Why did I meekly sit to be bound with chains? I tell you, no one has power to bind a human soul. Do you see that? No one has power to bind a human soul. So that means you too. But I tell you this. Now my Father gave me a power to unbind a human soul, to break the yoke that holds people in chains. Okay? So, in his might he arose, and what he thought were chains were only worthless cords. They're nothing. That parted at his touch. And then he laughed and said, the chains that bind men to the carcasses of the earth are forged in fancy shops, are made of air and welded in illusions of fire. If man will stand erect and use the power of will, his chains will fall. Now, you ever hear that song by Journey? You know, true love will never desert you. Will break those chains that bind you. Okay? And Jesus stood among the hungry beasts. He says, faith is stronger than the stoutest chains that men have ever made. So I see on this thing, I see on this website, these videos, it shows chains, okay? It shows chains. Well, you have the power to break those chains, to loosen those bonds off of you, and to walk as a free man. Man is a freed man. Man is a free man. Jesus stood erect and he said, what is the darkness that envelops me? 'Tis but is the absence of light. And what is light but by the breath of God vibrating in the rhythm of rapid thought or thought? Then he said, let there be light. And with a mighty will, he stirred the ethers up. Notice, he stirred the ethers up. So when I'm going to talk about the Book of Mormon at a later date and the Book of Ether that's in the Book of Mormon. So remember I told you that the Mayans believed, all these cultures believed that the universe started with a whirlwind, okay, with a whirlwind. Somebody stirred, somebody mixed, the Emix is the ancient dragon, okay, or Tiamat. It's the woman of creation, okay? And and we know that Marduk, okay, or who we're talking about now, okay, did what to Tiamat? So, and their vibrations reached the plane of light, and there was light. The darkness of that den of night became the brightness of a newborn day. This is the mystery of the 8th day, right? New beginnings. The 8th day, the sun will rise again with healing in its wings. What's it say in Daniel 12? Many will turn those as the righteousness of as the brightness of the firmament. Okay? And then he looked to see the beasts and the birds and the creeping things, and though they were not, it was just an illusion. Jesus said, what are souls afraid of? Fair is the chariot in which man rides to death. It's a lie. And when he finds himself within the chamber of the dead, he learns that he has been deceived. His chariot was a myth and death a fancy child. But someday all man's lessons will be learned. And from the den of unclean beasts and birds and creeping things will arise to walk in the light. And Jesus saw a ladder made with gold, which he climbed. At the top of the white-robed priest awaited him. Again he stood before the council bar. And again no word was said. And the Hierophant reached forth his hand to bless. And he placed in Jesus' hand another scroll. So it's interesting here. Now the scrolls have been opened in Revelation. Okay. The scrolls have been opened in Revelation. But notice now he's receiving new scrolls. Okay. And this one was written heroism. The Logos had encountered fear, his phantom host, in the conflict. He achieved the victory. In chapter 53, notice the 1335 days, right? 1335 days. We were talking about Isaiah 53. Okay, this is the 6th degree, love divine. In all the land there was no place more grandly furnished than the beauty parlors of the temple of the sun. This is Heliopolis, or the city of On. Okay, the city of On. So it's like an on and off switch. Did you forget to turn it on, or did you forget to turn it off? Now, they have the ability to read genes. They have the ability to decode your DNA. They have the ability to read every single thought pattern that you have, every single thing that's going inside of your body, okay? In and out. They have the ability to do this, okay? Which is very scary. And nobody likes being like this. Nobody likes, feeling like every single move they make, they're watched. Every single thing they think, they're analyzed. This can mess a person's head up, and it's very dangerous because it causes them to obsess and compulse over the thought that somebody else is watching them, that somebody else is like spectating them. Okay, it's not a very good feeling to have. But it's a feeling sometimes I feel like I got to overcome. And I don't know how to do that. But that's how you walk with integrity, I guess. So few students have ever entered these rich rooms. The priests regarded them with awe and called them the halls of mysteries. When Jesus obtained the victory over fear, he gained the right to enter here. The guide led him on the way. After passing many richly furnished rooms, they reached the Hall of Harmony, and here Jesus was left alone. Among the instruments of music was a harpsichord. Now remember, the 144,000, what are they given? They're given palms and they're given harps, okay? And these harps, like David played the harp before Saul, he made beautiful music before Saul. Now, the book of Melchizedek that was found in the Qumran caves, they talk about this. It talks about how all the men and women of New Jerusalem, they're all musicians. They all play music. Now, the sound of music changed, okay? So if you want to see something, go to Melody Sheep, okay? Go to Melody Sheep on YouTube, okay? So they changed the sound of music. They changed the way things are played, okay? Things are said, things are done, and the sound of music. The hills come alive. So among the instruments of music was a harpsichord, and Jesus sat and thought, inspecting it, when quietly a maiden in entrancing beauty came into the hall. She did not seem to notice Jesus. As he sat and mused, so busy with his thoughts, she found her place beside the harpsichord and touched the chords most gently. She sung the songs of